We good?
Okay, we are recording and we are ready to roll.
Calling the CIA meeting of September 8th to order. We'll start with a roll call. Supervisor Brewer.
Present.
Scott Berman, present. Rachel Elzinga.
It's not going to be here today.
Calvin Jones.
Here.
Peggy Von Payne.
Here.
Tony McGaldy.
Present.
William Du Bois.
Here.
Keith Wright. And Donald Wolf.
Right.
Assume everybody got a copy of the agenda.
Yeah, there are agendas online and I left a copy to each of your seats.
Thank you. Everybody good? Any questions about that before we get going?
It's good to me.
You need a motion?
I have a motion to accept the agenda as is. So move.
Support.
Open the floor to public comments.
Well, I don't really have a comment.
Hold on. If you do you mind going to the
Sorry.
introduce
Because it's
yourself?
online so that people can hear you as well.
Introduce yourself and give your address, please.
Darius Renette, Diamonddale, Michigan. Don't really have a comment, but I would like to introduce myself. I am the newly elected Eaton County Treasurer. And given the activity or the impact Delta Township has upon the county, I like to stay informed on all matters. So I'm coming here just to learn. So thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Seeing no other public comments, we will move on to the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. I think everybody got sent an electronic copy of those. Does anybody have any questions or would like to make a move to accept them as presented?
So moved. Support.
Thank you. Moving on to the CIA information.
We've got to vote on the minutes.
Oh,
We gotta
sorry,
go.
my bad. I am,
Miss Cole.
I'm short on time, trying to make it all go. Calvin taught me how to do it, to get it fast. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So move. Unanimously. Moving on to the CI informational meeting now. Is there a topic under that you want?
Well, I can explain this. I added this as an agenda item to more of selfish reasons. What we'll plan on doing moving forward, the CIA board has to have 2 informational meetings. So that is preceded by notice to the taxing jurisdictions that the CIA board captures. So which is Eaton County. So what I plan on doing is we have to, like I said, we have to provide notices for that. It can be challenging, just in my couple of years here to set it, like the last time around, we had set it for this meeting. And then we ended up canceling the meeting. So I did have a couple people from taxing jurisdiction show up. It was too late to tell them that. So my plan moving forward was just to keep it on every agenda. Send a notice at the beginning of the year to all the taxing jurisdictions, tell them when all our meetings are, and we will just keep it as an open agenda item. That way, if any of them can come to any of the meetings, it's at their convenience, really. So we don't necessarily need to do anything, and the state act does not require that we do anything for these informational meetings, but I think it's an opportunity to have a running opportunity for any of these jurisdictions to be here, see what we're up to, that kind of thing. So if it's okay with the group, I'd like to leave this on the agenda moving forward as just a reminder to go to this at every meeting.
It's a good idea.
And it will cover our noticing requirements as well.
Understood. Further discussion?
I don't think so.
Okay, old items of business, starting with the MDOT project plan that we've met on the last couple of times.
Yep, I wanted to follow up on this item just to make sure there weren't any lingering questions or anything coming out of that. We had a lot of discussion over this the last couple of months. I don't intend to get back into it today unless we have to. But I wanted to follow up, just make sure there weren't any lingering questions. From my perspective, we are abreast of what MDOT plans to do. We understand which option they plan on pursuing. They did come to the township board at its last meeting, the meeting before last. and provided the presentation that we had discussed at the last CIA board meeting, which is an overview of kind of how we got to now, essentially. And they talked to the board about their plan moving forward. As we know, there's nothing happening immediately. From my perspective, I feel like we gave the MDOT team the wish list in terms of project items that we would like to see if there is an opportunity. Obviously, if space, time, and money all allow, and they know what we need moving forward, I plan on to check in with them on a regular basis to ensure that we are top of mind and that everything that we've talked about doesn't get lost in the shuffle. And we'll hope to know more as they get through the design process. But for here, I think it'll drop off as a regular agenda item for this group. Unless there's anyone that feels otherwise, or if there's something aspect to this that we didn't tackle or needs more attention.
Supervisor, you're at the board meeting, I take it, right?
Yes.
So you've seen where we are at this point where the project itself got moved, got cut a little bit. That's what they presented on that.
It is,
that's
yeah, they
been-
showed the reduced, what they had before and then what the reduced
Okay.
scope of work is for now.
Okay.
The budget option, I've been calling it.
Okay, very good. Is there, do we have another local advisory group?
There's
meeting?
nothing scheduled right now,
Nothing
no,
scheduled.
no, and those meetings have been initiated by the MDOT project team.
Okay,
So I'll stay in touch with them and they do
Okay.
plan on holding another one at some point. There's no specific scope of time when that's coming.
is there any feedback from the board for us?
I didn't think so. I'll defer to Supervisor Brewer, but I didn't hear anything that was any different than we've been discussing for now. It seemed like the board was appreciative of the update and on board, so to speak, with the direction that they're moving in.
I
Absolutely.
concur.
Peter, you set the scope well, time, money, all of those factors. But at what point is it appropriate for this group to get into the discussion on things that maybe didn't make our wish list? Whether or not we're going to consider possibly funding them, whether that's the wider sidewalk or different lighting or.
Great.
What's the process? How does that typically work, or what's your recommendation?
Well, let's use lighting as an example. Again, I don't know. I haven't been through a big highway project before.
Me either.
So I'm gonna keep in touch with them. At some moment, there's gonna be probably the next step beyond preliminary design. So they'll have a design. They know what we're looking for. They're gonna be able to show us that, hey, this is where the room is for the streetlights. I would say at that point, we should engage with talk amongst the group, and we can start the conversation before that. But I think we've got a couple months grace at least to talk about, well, what type of light fixture is if we're gonna pay for it, what exactly are we looking for? Stuff like that. If there is an opportunity to pick out specific things, then we would bring it to this group. As of now, they just kind of have we know lights, we know whatever, sidewalk. The sidewalk obviously is a spacing thing, so there's not much this group. They either can fit it in or they can't, which we're obviously pushing very much that we want them to, but anything that's gonna require some kind of design decision, I think once they have at least provided feasibility, whether those items are gonna be included or not, then we can engage on this group and decide on designs.
And at what phase of that process would it make sense? I think kind of Tony bringing up for us to potentially pay to have some visionary drawings made so we can make quotes and that we can represent to the public to provide an update, or is that
I don't have an
asking
answer
for
for
more
you.
trouble than it's worth, or?
Well, I don't have a good answer for you on the MDOT design, so I'm not sure that we are gonna need to pay for pretty drawings or anything. I think that we might just be as easy as us picking out specific specs for lighting, for example. I'll engage with their team and talk to them about that, how that they see that rolling out. And I'll follow up with you. I think we've got at least this month, we won't have to make.
Makes sense.
So,
I'm just,
yeah.
again, I think the public's gonna have interest at
Yep.
some point.
Mhm.
We
100%
had
agree.
interest and some disappointment.
Yep.
And I think we have a responsibility to the public.
Mhm.
to join
Scott,
us.
if I can add on to that. I know we had talked in one of our meetings about signage.
Mhm.
We really don't have a welcome to Delta Township
Mhm.
marker. And I hope that there will be discussion. I don't know that do we have to wait until
Mhm.
MDOT does their things, because we don't have anything really that's, on the beginning, front end of our township to the back end. I don't know if those are things that we could put on the agenda to talk about. What could we do in that area, in that arena, and get it designed or get some cost put in front of this board?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I know we talked about it before, but I think it's whenever's the appropriate time. I'm learning too. so.
Yeah, I have Gateway to talk about under the corridor visioning part, but as it relates to this, I know I was expecting MDOT to incorporate some kind of infrastructure that would allow us to either have something to hang something from or some kind of support structure for some kind of gateway signage, if that's what we want to do. I don't think there's anything stopping that particular aspect of it. I just maybe offline could, well, we're never offline these days, but I could find out in a side conversation with MDOT if they are going to do that, kind of what the parameters might be, what they've seen in other communities, what's kind of the easiest thing for them to do, and follow up with the group.
That'd be great.
Okay.
And I'm thinking also
Ah,
down the east end of the corridor signage.
Both ends.
Yeah. So,
Any other discussion or input, suggestions about the
If-
MDOT project?
last we spoke with them, there was gonna be another public meeting later this year. Is that still,
That's the plan. I don't have a date. I haven't heard anything for them. My plan was to follow up with them after this meeting, just to say, hey, we met.
okay,
There's some lingering questions. Do you have dates for any of this stuff yet? My perception kind of was that MDOT finished this chapter and kind of closed the book for now, and they'll come back soon.
okay.
So I hope to know more, but in the next 30 to 45, 60 days, I don't see anything hot coming in on that project.
Any additional comments or questions? So moving on to the corridor visioning, I know we talked about the 2025 master plan last time.
Yeah,
Have an update or questions for us?
yeah, I got all kinds of stuff for you. So this was what I was hoping was kind of be the meat of the meeting today. So if everyone wants to buckle in and listen to me babble on for a little bit. So I was hoping to kind of have a meta conversation about talking about how we're going to talk about the corridor. I have some of my own thoughts and wanted to just kind of start the conversation and really have this conversation be about how we're gonna talk about it, because I think the topic is worth kind of setting up a little bit of the scope on how we're gonna get into it. It's a big topic. And I don't have all the answers here today, but I thought we could talk in pretty broad strokes about what we're looking at. So in your meeting packet, if you don't mind scrolling down to, or whatever method you're using, starting on page 5 of the PDF in the meeting packet, I had our GIS person, Nick, put together a series of maps. I know personally I struggle with like corridor planning because it's long and narrow and it's hard. It's one of those things, I don't know what your feedback was, but even like the MDOT project, looking at some of those long skinny maps, it's hard to get a big picture because it's not all on one page. So what we did was broke the corridor up into 6 different areas. So the map that's on the screen right now, one that's on page 5 of your packet, has the area from the highway west of Broadbent. We've got the area just kind of immediately east of the highway, so that's the township complex and kind of catching everything to Carrier Creek. And then the next grouping is around Kreitz Road, Kreitz Road commercial, kind of pre-mall. Sheet 5 is the mall, so that's the mall and the surrounding north and south businesses. And then sheet 6 is like Elmwood east to Waverly.
mhm.
So what we're trying to do is divide the corridor up into kind of bite-sized pieces. I do think that there is a feel, I mean, I'm not, we don't necessarily have kind of districts like you might see in some downtowns. But I think there is a feel, and this seemed like a natural geographic natural break, and also seemed to kind of group the businesses together a little bit. So, and then from there, each page from beyond that is a detail page on each. So for example, let's use sheet 2, which is page 6 of the packet PDF. This is the area west of the highway where MDOT's proposing this project. There's a lot going on with these maps, and that's part of the challenge of displaying things graphically, is just a lot of stuff to look at, and the map symbology can get busy and hard to read. So I'll walk you through this one. And if this gets too elementary, stop me. I don't mean it to be insulting. I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. So we have the legend on the right-hand side. So the colors are the future land use map designation. So in the 2013 master plan, we're going way back now, which is our current master plan, unfortunately.
Gosh.
So remember, we're in the process of fixing that. What you're gonna see and what you're gonna see in the next month is a future land use map. That is intended to designate how the community sees land developing now. So it's by land use category. So we've got yellowish is this single family, orange is multifamily, purple is office, and red is commercial. There is a light gray dashed line that shows the properties that are in the CIA district. So it's mostly just properties that bound or that border the corridor. However, there are some like the Delta Crossing site that go all the way up around. Like in this case, it goes all the way up. We capture these properties on Willow. But for the most part, you're gonna see the properties are just the properties that have frontage on West Saginaw. And then the thick black lines are zoning districts. So if you could see, some of the labels on these are kind of confusing because they're in weird spots, but all this red here, there's a random C, I don't know if you can see it down here by the road, but all this red is commercial. This box here, that's a mix of stuff is RM. So even though the master plan is calling for commercial here, our zoning map identifies this property as being split, multifamily and commercial. And then the very light lines, like for example, here are parcel lines. So we have one of these for each section of the corridor. This is intended to do a couple different things. One, I think it's going to tell us, and then we've got the air photo under here, which at this point is a few years old, so it's not 100% up to date. If you'll notice, like phase 2 from Delta Crossings is missing in this underlying air photo, and our team is actively working to get all that, the new aerials loaded. So we may be able to redo these with new aerials at some point. But I think there's a couple things that are happening here. One, we can quickly identify things that like existing land use that doesn't match zoning, doesn't match the future land use map. Those are things that I can do in-house. I don't need the CIA to have to painstakingly go through each parcel to tell whether there's a mismatch on land use and designation. I think this group is more focused on what is the vision? How do we see land developing? In a lot of the corridor, I think we're gonna say, looks good, commercial, awesome. But there's gonna be some places, especially I think as we move more towards the east, where we'd say like there are some properties here that are not in great shape. Businesses have been struggling there. This could be a great area for a mixed use, either a vertically mixed use with, retail on the ground floor and apartments upstairs. Or it could be a place for a flexible zoning district that doesn't yet exist. That's another policy that we'll get in, and I'll walk you through in a second. Where we could see this area would be really ideal for multifamily housing, or it's been office forever, and we know that there's 1 million square feet of vacant office space in Lansing, and we no longer need office. And these office buildings have been vacant for years. Maybe there'd be a better use here. That's how I see this board mostly engaging with this is from a policy and a land use kind of visioning perspective. So this is sort of a tease because we don't need to get into all these maps today. The reason I brought them to you was to start to talk about how you will be able to engage with the master plan. So we have a consultant on board right now. They are going through a lot of the public input that came in through we had 3 focus groups, we had 1 public open house, we had a community survey. They are going through that, analyzing it, synthesizing it, and they're gonna be able to come back to us with what they heard in the next month or so. So you'll have that at hopefully by the time our next meeting rolls around, or maybe the November meeting, you'll have that in hand. And we'll have had a couple discussions on the corridor in general. And you may at that point have some suggestions. You'll also have, and I don't have anything to show you right now, an updated future land use map that will be very similar to what we're looking at, but that will be a consultant derived map based on public input, based on their professional opinions, based on the conversations they've heard to date. And I will be ultimately looking for feedback from that group. So Lynn Wilson with OHM Advisors that doesn't live here and doesn't frequent this area as much may have a totally different view. For example, the eastern portion of the township, like the Elmwood East to Waverly, as someone, you know, in this group that may own property there or may own a business there, or drive down it 10 times a day. So we will need to provide feedback on those maps. We don't just take them as prescribed. So that's where I really would love to have engagement from this group, is vetting the future land use maps, making some suggestions, like, and this is kind of our homework time to look at some of these properties and decide if even what we have in the 2013 plan, like what we might want to change. Not expecting all that information to come out today. We don't, this is a relatively short meeting, so. But I wanted to at least orient the group as to kind of how we see ourselves engaging in this.
Peter?
Yeah.
On the east end, does it have to be contiguous with what's on the other side of Saginaw in terms of Lansing Charter Township? Does it have to be contiguous?
No, it does
with
not
what
at
they
all.
have in
No.
respect to, okay.
No, when we think about corridor planning, it doesn't have to, we don't have to align at all what's going on in Lansing Township. It's helpful to know
Yeah.
what's going on over there.
Okay.
I'm not aware of anything groundbreaking that would really impact our land use planning for the
Yep.
corridor. But, it's an important point, is we do not have to necessarily coordinate or.
And my second question, is there a difference between industrial versus light industrial, or commercial versus light commercial? I'm thinking something along the lines of an incubator or something like
Yeah,
that.
there is. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be reflected in like the maps that I showed you. In
Mhm.
our zoning ordinance, really, we have one industrial zoning district that covers all industrial activities. There are some very light industrial things that are allowed in our commercial district.
Yes.
Like basic assembly or something like that would be something that would be allowed in commercial. So yeah, that's but there is a difference. And I also wanna, I know I'm following this philosophy, is there are no rules when it comes to, I mean, I think that we need to think big. I don't want to be constrained by our current zoning ordinance. I don't want to be constrained by our current policy scheme necessarily. I mean, it's a place to start, but if, for example, if this group decide, and again, you're one group of many groups, so I don't want to speak too broadly about it, but if collectively the township decides, ultimately with the township board, that we need to change our zoning around and add a light manufacturing district to better represent the uses that we want to see someplace, that's totally 100% on the table.
Okay.
And I think this conversation is so long overdue that we have to have that more liberal take on it and be willing to kind of blow some of this up. If it doesn't work for us, then we can change it. That's kind of my government philosophy in general.
No, that's where I was going with my question. Thank you.
No, and I'm curious, when you say incubator, did you have something in mind, or that you feel like there's a need for, or what are you relating to? I'm
Yeah.
curious, because.
No, just zoning that would provide an opportunity to do something like that, if in fact that's what we chose to do. Something that would support the school, something that would support LCC as a, a hub right here, along Saginaw.
And that proximity to the highway for something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Was servicing
Key.
people would be pretty critical.
Mhm.
Yes.
So I think that's a
Yep.
really fascinating thing to explore.
Mhm.
Appreciate laying out the groundwork.
So,
Supervisor Brewer.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, being close to the freeway, I think is premium
Yeah.
to a lot of developers.
Mhm.
And there was some trends I heard that businesses or developers really like it to be able to put retail type businesses near the freeway. But I was gonna ask Peter to help us with this visioning, because we really have like a blank slate of paper to
Mhm.
work with. Is it possible, Peter, for you to direct us to, is there some benchmarking or some great thinking out there in the universe? I'm not limiting it just to the United States, but is there some
Mhm.
good work that's happening internationally that we could look at? So if you find any of those places,
Mhm.
would you share it with us so
Yeah,
that we can go
absolutely.
look at it online?
Yep.
To expand our mind. I don't want to limit it to, like you said, Peter, what we've done, where we are. We could do something really, really cool, but we may need a little, I know I would need a little help with trying to find out what's out there.
Yep.
What don't we know? What can we see? And then the other thing, Peter, as we look at these maps, are there any restraints with regards to our, I want to say utilities, our sewer system, capacity issues.
Yes, and that is something that the master plan is gonna tell us, that hand in hand with the master plan, and it's an unusual approach, but I'm glad that we're doing it. Is the master plan is going to tell, and stop me, I'm sorry if I said this already, but the master plan is gonna tell us where our capacity challenges are. We have a general idea already, but part of what they're doing is updating our residential equivalent unit, so REU map. That REU map tells us on any given property, how many residential equivalent units, and that by that means it's like, so if it's a business, obviously people don't live at the business, but they use utilities. So what is the equivalent utility activity, we'll say, it could be using sinks, flushing toilets, whatever, that in the unit as a resident. So they use it, like, the way they count utility activity is by residents, like how many people live in it. It's easy with a house, how many people live in a house, but, so that's what, when I say REU, that's what I'm talking about. So the master plan is going to be able to, they're working on this right now, we've got a meeting next week about it. They were going to be able to tell us where our biggest capacity challenges are. And the way that translates to land use is, obviously we would want to avoid, multifamily would be a great use in this area. However, we can't service people.
Right.
So that's the practical aspect of this plan. And that's why and that's how, frankly, how we were able to get this money from MISTA to do this grant, is that's the tie into housing. So we got this grant from MISTA, $50,000 to support our master plan project. And the tying into utilities was a big part of that, because it's a housing focus essentially. So we will know sooner than later on the corridor, kind of what's a green, what's a red, in terms of a place for higher level of development, whether that is multifamily housing, whether it's more intense commercial uses, whatever that is. We're gonna have some of that information at hand to help us with our planning. And to Supervisor Brewer's point, I don't want to just leave you. I mean, I don't want to just bring blank maps to you and tell you that you got to figure this out. So this is intended to be a facilitated process, and I'm going to do a good chunk of the legwork. But I wanted to kind of just provide an orientation today to kind of talk about what we're doing as part of this and where the intersections are between the CIA and this process in general. The other thing that our consultant's going to be preparing is goals and objectives. So we will have a list, and again, from their perspective, and based on public input, where they see some of the goals and objectives it'll be for the larger community, but it'll also be for the community, for the corridor. At your seats is a map. They titled Let's Talk Delta Township. It's an exercise from the master plan, but it's also so take a look at this, and you've got 5 different colored boxes, A, B, C, D, and E, and F. 6 colored boxes. And what this title does not say is that these may be what we determine as kind of priority development areas in the community. So I'll just walk through them real briefly. A is the area west of the highway and kind of along that west side of 9669. B is the kind of the municipal campus extending all around here and around Horrocks. We've got some hotels that, not in great shape. We've got some other projects over here that could use attention. C incorporates that Brookside Crossing, the I property there at the southwest corner of Kreitz and West Saginaw, the big undeveloped piece. D, and if you'll notice, I mean, the entire corridor is in here. D is the mall area and the surrounding, and then E is that Elmwood East to Waverly. And then the only one that's not in the corridor here, F, is the area that incorporates the other big vacant piece down here. So southeast corner of Kreitz and West Michigan Avenue, that's owned by Auto Owners Insurance. And then those, I'm careful not to characterize anything, but an older office development that's around that intersection at 496 and Kreitz. So as of now, those have been identified early on preliminarily as kind of like priority development areas in the township. And each of those may have their own characteristics. They may have their own policy approaches that need to be specific to these areas. So that's something that we can talk. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces to this. There's not a one size fits all. And that's one of the challenges I think with zoning is too often we try to fit too much stuff into just kind of a neat, nice little neat zoning ordinance, but it doesn't always work and it's not always practical to apply that to all properties in the community. So, okay. So we're gonna get some information soon from our consultant. We're gonna dig further into the master plan. They're gonna provide goals and objectives, a draft future land use map, a summary of the public input. I'd like to talk about kind of where we see going from here. On terms of visioning for the rest of the corridor and kind of, I mean, both master plan and not master plan. And I'll start and when everyone, I'd love to hear some input. I would advise highly that we don't jump into a contract with a land use planner or an architecture firm or anybody like that that wants to spend a lot of money right away. I think there's a lot of work to be done internally about this visioning process. And it's easy to draw a pretty picture of like a vision, and there are cases I think where it is valuable to have kind of that goal state that we're, like this is a vibrant West Saginaw highway, to have that goal state that we're striving towards. But there are also, I think, several steps before that, and sometimes it's easy to get, one folly I think I see some municipalities run into is bringing on somebody right away and getting to, those contracts we're not. I mean, the master plan contract is not cheap.
I'm sure.
We got a grant to cover a lot of it, but anything else, I mean, it's very expensive to like, I guess I'm dancing around that, but it's gonna be expensive to bring a consultant on board to do any kind of visioning. They're gonna wanna do survey work and it's gonna be expensive quickly. So I think that there are several things that we can do before that will help kind of set the stage for that. And that I see that as a future, potentially a future issue. There are some work that we could do in the meantime. So I know Brian, and we can bring this up at a future meeting. We've talked about a utility study for a portion of West Saginaw Highway, right? Like around the mall area.
Well, really for the whole stretch down to Canal, if we were to do a holistic approach, would be helpful.
Okay. And the reason I bring that up is like, now I know the state has a program, the redevelopment ready program, not suggesting we use the program, but identifying those things like, if an awesome mall redevelopment project fell from the sky tomorrow, are we ready for that? And that's something something like a utility, like more practical, measurable things. So that versus a pretty picture, maybe that's where a group like this, maybe that's where, some of the TIF dollars that come in, we may want to prioritize spending something like that to ensure that if this project were to come along, are we ready for it? I think it's probably the biggest thing. I want to talk real briefly about policy. There are, the zoning ordinance prescribes just about everything. Where a building is on a site, how tall it is, what the land use is, what the density of it is. Looking at some of those things to ensure that I think of it like SimCity. I don't know how, and maybe there's not a lot of people who play computer games here, but we're creating the environment for growth for the community to flourish. And the zoning ordinance is like the tweak is like controlling the controls of that aspect of it. So will our policy provide us with the developments that we want to see? So that's where some of this vision in the air, is going to come into play. And for example, there are parcels on the eastern side, like Elmwood and East, that are very narrow lots. If one of those properties were to be developed, does our ordinance require so big of setbacks as to make it impossible for someone to redevelop one of those sites? That we might. So I will bring some of these to you as potential red flag issues that I'm identifying. But also, for example, our residential development or density, we have some fairly low density standards. So let's just say 10 dwelling units per acre for some multifamily developments. And this is a much bigger policy issue that would need, extensive review, discussion, analysis, and ultimate approval from the board. But is that someplace that if we're going to see a multifamily development on the corridor to make it viable, is 10 units per acre going to work? I could tell you no. So that's the kind of thing that we want to look at and kind of marry all the elements of our zoning ordinance, our future land use visioning, all together to make sure that they actually are practical and work for projects when they come? And also, are they incentivizing, are they creating a policy atmosphere that's gonna incentivize either redevelopment or new development or development of some other type? You know, we know what current zoning gives us. We see it up and down the corridor. So, do we want to keep doing more of the same, or are there tweaks that we need to make to our policies to ensure that we get, I'll say better, and not qualifying what that means, but developments down the road?
Peter,
Yeah.
question, are we getting that feedback from prospective developers out there?
Not necessarily from developers. We haven't had a lot of, and I don't want to paint some dire circumstances that these developers are coming to us and saying, oh, yeah, hit the road, we don't have what you need.
Yeah.
That's not happening. But, I do think that, so I mean, short answer is no, I don't have a lot of initial, a lot of feedback. We haven't had a lot of big redevelopment projects on the corridor in my time here.
Mhm.
So I haven't heard any like criticism specifically. But I guess I'm speaking in broader strokes
Okay.
about,
Yeah.
aligning all these things so that they are gonna give us a product that we wanna see.
Sure, and then early on, when we started the board, we brought in a couple local developers. I don't know
Yeah.
if you were here or not. at
I
that
was
time.
not.
I don't remember, we brought in Sean and Van Martin, Sean O'Brien from Colliers and
Oh, yeah.
just, I think we started some of this conversation early on. I cannot recall if we have any notes or anything that we can share the group.
We can, yeah, we can go back through the.
Just an idea, maybe want
It's
to.
changed
Awesome.
Yes, and
in 2 years.
so I guess the other question is, do we bring them back at this point? Is there any value in that? And I don't know if there is or not, but,
Yeah, just left it.
And I'll tell you,
Just left shot.
the master plan committee had a, focus group here with the economic development, but we had very, very poor attendance.
Hmm.
So we had like six people. So if you were to do something like that, it would be helpful. And I mean, we'll look back through to see what we have now, but I didn't get a lot out of the meeting that we had for the master plan, so that might be helpful.
Okay.
To bring all those, whether it's those people or
or if it's not.
big meetings, small meetings, whatever that is, get some info from them. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, we could look back for some of those no's, cause that was that was, just kind of roundtable discussions. 'Cause I know we had the disability network
Yeah.
and non-motorized crew. I think we did a series of 6 or 7 different groups. So we can look back. I think those might have been in notes that, Progressive A&E did for us.
Okay.
And,
My takeaway at the time, other than non-motorized vehicle travel being important to a core group, including bicycle and bicycle stops, which we end up putting bike racks in our restaurant to accommodate. But from the developers specifically, my recollection, and doesn't mean it's a good recollection, was that they were interested in this mid-tier housing because the housing market had changed so dramatically. They were having a hard time finding places to put starter homes up that would attract young mobile adults. Now, again, I don't know how much that's changed, how much interest rates have affected, if interest rates are gonna go down in the next couple of weeks, but or
I
not.
think, yeah, I do remember that, and that was, the case, which it might be helpful input for the master plan. I'm not sure as far as like the corridor discussion, other than potential mixed use development, there's not a lot of land for
Not single family.
single family, other than the 2 big, capture areas, of Crichton, Saginaw and
Brookside.
Brookside and Delta Crossings, but. Right, that was.
Again, I don't know if the housing market has changed. Obviously, prices have gone up and continue to go up for them, so.
Yeah,
And is it common, and I don't mean to take a student body left on you here, but as you're approaching this, and I assume this falls more heavily on the board, but obviously there's some application of TIF dollars for whatever. How does it, I mean, you can treat these markets differently as it relates to creating Interest in development like you referenced. I mean, like, for example, you brought up the Lansing to the west. I got a phone call, right, saying, hey,
Yeah.
we've got brownstone dollars. We'd love to have you put a Culver's at the corner of
Yeah.
Waverly and West Saginaw. And I ended up turning them over to somebody else, but they're clearly trying to ramp that up, and they're trying to do it as a multi-faceted development because they're trying to get 8 or 10 different businesses to all combine to say, okay, we'll all do it at once, so that they feel like they've got a compelling interest. And how down the road, and I know this is way down the road, but how do we address that on the corridor? Because it's way easier to sell near the highway, as you said, than it is to sell that opposite corner at Waverly and West Saginaw. And maybe that's not even an appropriate discussion today. I'm just curious what the approach is because I'm not experienced in it.
Well, yeah, I'd say that our development plan sets us up pretty good for that as far as we have the tool mainly for Delta Crossing and Brookside. And we do have, we did contemplate some money in there if the mall does a major redevelopment, mainly to address utilities around the mall, which the public utilities are pretty much a mess. Would have to be done for any redevelopment, but I think for the township board and Peter's working on, we will have some more policy discussion on brownfields, which which we can do for redevelopment, which is our famous one is across the street. So for any redevelopment, I think that's a little bit easier there are some more tools for the green fields, for the housing and that type of thing, which we're also exploring. So we are working on being prepared for potential in that regard in terms of what we view as a good project. What are some of the, criteria we would want to see? Some of it is always project contingent, but to the degree that we can prepare for it, and Peter can probably speak to it a little differently, but what Lansing Town, and I'm not super familiar with what they're trying to do, but it makes sense. It's very similar to what we did with the corridor plan with, the Flowerland property of saying, if you can do holistic and you're gonna do all of this all at once, we have some reimbursement dollars for infrastructure. And as we all know that, it fell apart, so it didn't all happen at once. And well, now we're.
And is that, again, because I'm not knowledgeable about it, you have the ability, the board, as you create policies, to do that pretty surgically in small areas or individual lots, or is it, no, we've got to do it in a zone or the whole corridor or?
Applying CIA dollars has to be in the district
Mhm.
specifically. We could do it on a small site, we could do it on a large site, it just depends.
But it can be surgical. You can decide to do it either on the west or east end and not on.
Anywhere in the
other,
corridor,
if you
yeah.
want. Okay.
It's specific to, just keeping in mind that we can only spend money on those items that are in the TIP plan, so it's public improvements, not support to private developments. I mean, it's in
Understood.
kind essentially, it's public support, infrastructure, payment for infrastructure versus helping them build, a discount on the shell they're building.
I mean, I
That is for the CIA. Some of the other programs have different
requirement.
requirements or approach. I mean, I think you probably could do it with the brownfield, but I don't know that I've seen places do it. That program kind of has to be eligible expenses anyways. But
I just continue to be passionate about the assets that our community has, specifically the township being 37,000 cars a day. And I think that developers are going to be interested in putting businesses or other endeavors if they feel like they're surrounded with like-minded people who are going to help attract, business, and they have the resources needed to do it, and the roads are safe and all those things.
So
I just wanted to interject. I think this is excellent discussion, but I was just gonna point out just the fact, and my question is, Brian Peter and Supervisor Brewer. Has Delta Township interacted with CEDAM? Has Delta Township interacted with the, right now Ingham County Land Bank or the Ingham County Housing Trust Fund? Because over in Ingham County, and I'm sitting in these meetings right now where they're super focused on developers right now, specifically emerging developers. And so I think it's gonna be important for Delta Township to present itself and to have some open houses to say, hey, we're interested in you coming here. We're ready to work with you. We're willing to be part of the team. Let's make some things happen. So I think it's gonna be, as we go about this process, really just putting everyone on notice is like, Delta Township is where you want to be developing at, because we're gonna help your project go through. We're gonna remove the hurdles. We're gonna work with you. Right now, just with my own experience in going through, I've recently, well, I shall not say who, but I recently had a meeting on a project that I'm currently working on and dealing with legislation. And the first thing we're in there and they're shooting the thing down. Now, mind you, everybody else loves the project, but they're super negative right out the gate. And so I think it's gonna be a top down approach
Is
to.
that here in Delta?
Yeah, no, not Delta, not Delta.
Oh,
Not Delta. Municipalities shall not be named, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that you get people who over time are ingratiating and they've been in a position 30 years and like we were just saying, they're so used to doing it a certain way that they lose that spark. And so I think it's important to let the public know and let developers that are out there that Delta Township has a spark and we're really ready to change and be on a cutting edge. We want to build like Dubai, right here in Delta Township, and that's what's gonna, as a developer myself, that's what's gonna make me, okay, well, let me look what's out there. Well, I was thinking about doing this project over here. Well, let me see what's over here. Maybe I can make it work.
And I think that's really well said. I just think it's important with the way you laid the groundwork, Peter, that we are willing, doesn't mean we're willing to do anything, but we're willing to consider anything,
Yes.
right? And,
All on the table.
that if we can get that kind of feedback and input, invite people in, stealing your words, that, hey, we're open for business. We get that input now, whatever that means, whether it's setbacks or easements or traffic lights or bus stops or whatever it might be, that they go, well, if you had more of that, okay, well, that's why we're drawing a new master plan. Let's hear what they have to say first.
I think we're really in a good place. We're at a
I think so.
crossroad where this master planning that's underway is sparking the energy and ideas. And I love where Peter and both Brian are is let's be visionaries. Let's not be stuck in the past. We sometimes may have to take baby steps with some of our boards, but we can get there. We can get there. And so I really like this conversation because this is important. We do want to say, hey, we're open and we welcome you. We have to make sure our ducks are in order and that we have capacity. We don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. And I think those are the measures that they're going through here with the administrative team. And then they're going to say, okay, bring on these ideas. What do you have? Because they're going to come from here. You're business owners, you're nonprofits, you are boots on the ground, which is the current cowboy lingo. So you're it. And so keep that thinking coming. Let's not restrict ourselves until Brian and Peter go, well, I always make them the bad cop. but I need to be-
That's fine.
Here's what I would say for the benefit of the CIA board is Delta, I mean, I think we have been very forward thinking. So in the last couple years, we've built an Amazon, a huge Amazon facility. We built a LG battery plant.
Yeah.
We did create the Corridor Improvement Authority that was based on, trying to, obviously certain things did not work out with that, but we're, I think, very forward thinking and creating the corridor improvement plan for the whole corridor. We have had brownfields, we've had close to $100 million of reinvestment into the corridor over the last decade or so, where I think, and folks in your guys' world, in the developer world, may hear some things about Delta being slow to act because we have had some utility constraints on the sewer side, which we've been working hard to address with, several different sewer projects. And then our master planning efforts, trying to tie that in so that we can be comfortable where we can develop and be able to serve businesses and feel comfortable about it, because that's really what's changed too in the last 5 or 10 years. We have to, our engineer has to certify. So if you want to do a new building or housing, he's got to certify that you have or the township has appropriate utility capacity. And it, it's his P license on the line. So years ago, I mean, for the first half of my career, it's just like always yes, 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 and we'll figure it out later. Now the state has become more systematic, probably for a good thing, because we don't want basements flooding or that type of thing. So we're in very good shape on the water side. It's just the sewer side. There's some areas that are challenged, including the east side of the corridor. So it is a challenge when we do have projects come in. Sometimes it does take a while because we have to model it, and hopefully this process, the master planning process, we're gonna help, that's gonna help expedite some of that being more open for business and, particularly redevelopment, because that's, I think that would be ideal. New development's always nice, but I mean, if we can get redevelopment in old buildings and
Yes.
get those turned around or that type of thing, that would be great. So, but I do appreciate, and interested in ideas, and especially like even, experiences with other municipalities, just so we can kind of learn from it too, and take a double look at our process too, as things that you've experienced. It would be great.
What not to do.
So I'll put a ribbon on this. Part of this, we can kind of crowdsource ourselves. So what I was hoping for, and it's kind of, a little bit old, but have a discussion about a SWOT analysis for the corridor. Just some of the, and just to identify what are the issues that we're all talking about. Let's put some words behind some of the things that we're talking about. I mean, just off the top of my head, before the meeting, I was taking some notes. Some of the primary issues I see, particularly, as we move east, absentee land owners are really challenging to deal, dealing with big corporations can be great when you tell them these are what you have to do, and they say, well, I'm a $1 billion company, sure, whatever. I need full site plans, that kind of thing. That's easy. Getting them to engage at any level about land use planning or improvements to their site or what their plans are for their property, a little more difficult. Years of disinvestment on some properties. I don't want to point fingers, but they're out there. And those are pretty obvious to everybody. The lack of a gateway, if you're driving west towards Delta, I mean, eventually you'll see one of our Delta flags, but you don't know. And I never, in the years I lived here before I worked here, didn't know where Delta started and where Lansing ended. So it's important on both sides of the corridor to be able to identify those things, but there are plenty more. So I think taking the time with this group to really kind of flesh out some of that would be helpful to me. And kind of what we did for the MDOT stuff, but I think it'll, on a broader scale. So if you're willing to have some of those conversations here at this meeting over the next couple months, I think it would be helpful. And then try to identify, we'll leave you with this, is like identify where can we help. Obviously, we'll have TIF dollars. They're of limited applicability and limited, they're not giveaways to businesses. They're not to cover design fees. They're for public infrastructure specifically. So given that, so where does that leave us? It leaves us personally, I think, with policy. That's where the rubber hits the road to me is the township sets policy impact influences, dictates development. That's where we have the most leverage and where I think we'll see the most impactful work. And then how can we incentivize I think, I think Brian's right, and maybe to even overstate it, that redevelopment is probably what we're looking at in most of the corridor. We have two big greenfield sites. Jiffy, what's it called? Jiffy Lube took the one
Yeah.
undeveloped site that if you would have looked at it, I never would have thought they could fit a Jiffy Lube onto a little site like that.
Exactly.
But that's it. I mean, there isn't much opportunity for new development. So anything that we see is gonna be redevelopment. So I think from purely, and that's again, going back to our absentee owners, maybe not absentee, but non-local owners, faceless corporations. How can we incentivize redevelopment? If a shopping center from the seventies continues to get tenants and bring a landlord that lives in Florida money, why would they ever be incentivized to redevelop? Redevelopment helps us, the locals here, makes our drives more, it makes our sites more functional, get different types of businesses, and makes your drive more pleasant, for whatever of the reasons that are important to us locals. But how can we communicate? What is the communicate love language of a developer that lives in Florida to get them to redevelop a property here? Maybe it's one piece of a 2,000 property in a portfolio that they just don't care about.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think that's where I keep coming around back to policy, and in my career has been proven to be very important, is that's how we, if all of a sudden, yeah, that shopping center gets you X, but did you know that we just changed our zoning ordinance to allow 6-story buildings, and 4 of those can be apartments or
Mhm.
condos or whatever they are. Now all of a sudden, the profit potential in a purely paper development minded person is that's a different calculation.
Yeah.
So that's where I see some of those inroads and kind of how I wanted to frame this discussion as we go forward. So, all right, I'll stop, but I'm hoping that some of that is kind of like providing the start of a framework for how this discussion could happen over the next few months. We're gonna have a lot more to work with moving forward. I'll set up some discussions to have at this group in terms of like identifying some of our issues and where our opportunities are and that kind of thing. But if there's anything else that you wanted to talk about today, we just hit 5 o'clock on this issue. If you think of something that maybe I didn't kind of ramble about today, get with me before the next meeting. I want to leave no stone unturned in this. I mean, it's a longer term discussion. I think it's the next thing. I mean, there's been, at least what I have heard, is this is a high priority for this group to dig into. So that's kind of how I see it playing out. But I'm definitely open to input on that.
I mean, back to Scott, you mentioned this a couple of meetings ago. Now that we're through, I think this MDOT piece here, west of the highway, this is your vision, Peter, to help us sort of revision the corridor. This is the mechanism,
Yeah,
at least start that conversation.
yeah, and it doesn't have to end with the master plan. The master plan is something that's gonna get done and signed and sealed because it has to.
Sure. When is
One,
that, by the way?
I've got to get it done for the grant. It doesn't have to be approved, but I'm
What-
thinking of it as a launching point because zoning stuff doesn't have to be in the master plan. I mean, we could identify the West Saginaw Highway corridor as future study area. And then this group can kind of take it from there and run with it. And we can talk about policies and whatever. But I think the master plan is a good first vehicle to have this discussion, and then we can carry that out from there.
Well, this is exciting.
Yeah.
This is fun. So it'll give us like targets that we can focus on.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Anything I missed? Tim?
Anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I can weigh in on this, just for Peter and Brian, I've worked with a group, the Lansing EDC and the Brownfield Authority in terms of getting owners to participate in the process that haven't traditionally been in the process. We had to find the owners of Logan Square. And once we found them in China, we talked with them about redeveloping the area, that type of thing. There wasn't much discussion, but they're engaged now.
Yeah.
They're engaged now because we utilize some strategies to bring them to the table to at least talk about what the community would like to see there. And there's progress being made, and I can't say when it's going to happen, but they are certainly engaged in our discussion now. We don't speak Mandarin Chinese, but now we're learning. We're teaching as much as we possibly can. But it's a good discussion with those owners actually coming to the table and talking to us about it. So, yeah, I can certainly put you together with, some of the folks that we're talking with, that type thing to
Yeah,
at
thank you.
least give you some strategic moves so that you can at least, engage them with a playbook.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Mhm.
Anything else on corridor visioning? For today, lots more to come. Do you want to go over the 2026 budget briefly?
Oh,
or
I do.
Our plans for that?
Yes. Good call. There's a memo in your meeting packet about 2026 budget. It's not a lot different from what you've seen before. Thanks to Courtney Nichols, our finance director, for helping put this together. We're doing frankly, she doesn't do most of it. So this table just shows the tax capture for 2025, what we were expecting, and then what we've actually got. So we're $66 in the black. So I'll figure out how to spend that. And then what we're expected to get in tax capture is significantly more, so 381.9 for 2026. And then you see the breakdown of everything else here. So now that we are gonna start collecting interest, you'll notice in the bullet points down below. So that $12,000, we are gonna start collecting interest on the money that the TIF dollars are being brought in. So contractual services, we still have the same money committed to, it's Benesh, and part of it would be Benesh, and then part of it would be whatever we've got to use them for, but the contract with Benesh, I think, was approximately that amount. I don't plan, you see, we've only spent 5,200. I don't expect to spend nearly as much with Benesh as we originally had planned, so that's really good news. Administration fees is the fee that the CIA board pays the township for staffing. So, and then legal fees, both this and the quarter infrastructure maintenance item were new items last year that we just wanted there are legal fees involved, with TIF, with Delta Crossings, and then with quarter infrastructure maintenance. This was $20,000 is not gonna put a bite in a public infrastructure project, but it's a start of an allocation, at least to have that line item moving forward. So what we're looking for, today is a recommendation. And there's a motion at the bottom. So what this group would be doing is recommending this budget to the board, to transmit this budget to the manager and ultimately township board. There's a motion on the bottom of page 11 of your meeting packet.
Anybody have any questions about it or input?
Is the budget laid on page 13, is that any money that's left over, is that rolled into the next year, or how am I not? Am I trying to understand reconciling the numbers. So what do we?
Where, what are you looking at?
The last page there.
Looking at
Last
the actual
page.
calculations, recommended amended budgets, right?
Yeah,
This is all incorporated into the memo. Which part of it?
so the original budget for 25 was 279.
Yep.
The activity, we ended up going through
So we ended up capturing that much more, so $66 more.
dollars. And so we're saying in 26, we're gonna increase the overall by
Right, yeah, we're anticipating to collect almost $100,000 more.
to collect.
Yes. Yeah, activity might be misleading. I mean, activity meaning what we brought in,
Okay,
just the activity, gain or loss.
I see.
There was also, wasn't it during this year that we made a payback to monies in arrears to the township that you guys
Did
had
that,
front
yes, we are,
loaded?
and that is now done, yep.
Yeah, it's paid and reconciled.
Mm-hmm.
That's that 50,000 at 24 probably.
Right.
So in 24, on page 13, total estimated revenues was 274,000. And change, and then total appropriations was 79,000 and change.
Mhm.
So for a net revenue of 195,000.
Correct.
So
So it would just, any funds that aren't spent or budgeted is in fund balance.
it's in a fund balance. Correct.
So it does carry over. This doesn't show any residual bank accounts or
Yeah,
fund
so-
balance.
so that's what I'm
I think that's what
asking.
he's trying to see.
Yeah.
What is the
Yeah,
actual
um,
fund balance in the CIA?
I don't have that.
We do not have the balance sheet on
Okay.
here.
I may have something in my email.
But it would logically be those different
Right,
amounts
when
added.
I would imagine, right?
Mhm.
So we're saying we're at $1 million plus or minus?
At the end of next year. 195 plus
Yeah.
168,
Yeah,
so 368. Well, now 280, so 400.
Yeah, whatever, the number- yeah, whatever the,
The
yeah.
end of next year's $800,000.
Mhm.
Yeah, as of last November, we had 309,333. So then we took in. So yeah, we're 5, 6 something.
And then if we do hit the 274 next year,
You'd be eight plus.
yeah. Good question.
Okay, I just wanna make sure, I mean, so when we move forward with whatever it is, lighting or something, that's the number we're sort of playing with, right?
that's, those are the funds that we anticipate
available.
for a larger project. Which
Yeah.
we don't really have
Okay.
anything reflected in this budget because we don't really know at this point.
Okay,
But yeah, we can have a balance sheet for you too.
thank you,
Good.
thank you.
So there's a motion on the table that the Corridor Improvement Authority adopt the 2026 budget as presented, the balance sheet to follow.
Who was the motion?
Nobody made it yet.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
putting it out there.
I'd make
Would
a
somebody
motion.
like to?
Yeah.
Okay, any support?
Or,
Support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Moving on to staff updates. Has there been, I just have a question that normally ties in with this. Have you heard of any activity or interest about Brookside?
We get people that'll kick tires on that side every once in a while, but no, nothing of,
Nothing serious.
nothing of real serious interest at all. So, no. The biggest, I'll go with Delta Crossings. They, we continue to work with them on getting things turned over from phase 1 and phase 2. That's an ongoing struggle, but we're really making progress. And getting easements and, as-built for those. And, the road work on North Marketplace Drive is supposedly complete. So their next step is then to convert that and get it turned into a county road. So the management company, CBRE, working on behalf of the owners, that whole condo group over there are gonna be working with the county to make that happen. That's a huge piece of that project off our backs, if we can get that road part done. So we're getting closer to a Bass Pro Shop, the moving ground and actually starting. So I'll advise everyone when that does happen. I went to the grand opening for Back Nine Golf on Friday. It's awesome facility. Please go check it out.
Yeah.
Meet the owners. They're all local guys that work at LAFCU here in the township, invested in this franchise, and it is a truly cool facility that I think is gonna be very viable in, there and with the township in general. So check them out if you haven't already. Do you have anything else you wanted to share?
I just had a timely text from our finance director, who's always on the spot, who just said a fund balance projected to be 580,000 at the end of 2025.
Oh,
580.
my eyes just got wide. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, at the end of 2026.
Yeah.
You know,
Like it'll be a
kept
John
going.
800 a little over.
Thank you.
So we're starting to build some,
Yeah.
what sounds like a lot of money, unfortunately, with any type of infrastructure project.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Still is the, dropping the buckets, but.
Almost there.
Any other updates? Peter and Brian?
Not for today.
Add one.
Yes,
Ned,
please.
that I just found out about today, and I shared it with those two gentlemen. It's McLaren is going to have a ribbon cutting.
Nice.
September 24th at 5 p.m. 5:30. It'll be 5 p.m. and then there's a public open house from 5:30 to 7:30.
Peter, will you be sending? this
Yeah, I'll
out?
send something out. We just got it today, so I'll make sure that we get, that everybody gets that.
Next meeting is October 13th on a Monday. Does that look like it's plausible for most of us? Any other comments or discussion?
That's Columbus Day, the building. gonna be
Yeah.
open.
Oh, what is it? Oh, that's a good point.
Said it's Columbus Day, the next
Columbus
meeting
is-
is October 13th.
Oh, we're open.
Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Yep.
Any other comments or discussion?
No.
Meeting is adjourned, 5:13.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, sir.
Scott, you have the, these ladies are coming back. to the hospital.
Basketball, I think.